A new, highly controversial YouGov poll ranks states from the best to the worst. I'm sure Team Rising is going to have plenty to say about this list.
That's right. Joining us to talk about it, CEO of Pine Street Strategies, host of Smart Folks, Don Calloway, and culture editor at The Federalist, Emily Jashinsky. Emily, let me start with you. I'm trying to see, where did your state make the cut here? I'm more just curious what you make of this thing.
Where are you from,
I'm from Wisconsin. I've got my railroad map of Wisconsin in the background here.
Number 38.
Number 38. People do not like cheese all that much. It turns out having really crappy weather is certainly, something that people don't like here. I personally think Hawaii, this is BS in my opinion. Look, I like Hawaii. It's a nice place. Super expensive though. Not necessarily a place that you'd want to live. I'm curious for your thoughts just in terms of, according to Americans and how they see states, what I'm seeing here is people really like leisure at this point. Makes sense. During COVID. Just give me your general thoughts. This is just a fun segment. Go off in any way you want.
Well, it's an unfortunate day for me to grab my Washington Capitals mug, actually.
They came in dead last, DC. Yikes.
Which is kind of sad, because I would hope that people that are being polled actually do have, I don't want anybody to have a sort of great opinion of the swamp denizens of the Beltway. I would hope that they have a good opinion of the beautiful city, because it is a beautiful city and the National Mall is beautiful and it's a beautiful place to go. Incredible museums, arts and culture. So I am, it concerns me that DC ranked last here. Maybe people don't think of it as a state, which is appropriate from my perspective. But I guess what I do see is the leisure thing is important. But at the same time, you have states like Texas coming in at 10. You have states that are similar to where I think we see a lot of millennials moving. If you look at some of this data, places that are, places like, I don't know how New York ended up that high, but Texas is a really good example. Arizona. Colorado is a really good example. Arizona. These are places where millennials are leaving because they are cheaper to live in and they are beautiful. They have a lot of outdoor space and physical activity. And so I think a room for physical activity, to quote Step Brothers a little bit there. So I think that's what I sort of saw in this, to the extent that I could glean a pattern from it. That's what I saw. But again, it's just disappointing that Wisconsin ranks so poorly.
I think it's justified in my personal opinion, Emily. Sorry, but I will say, so my home state of Virginia is number 3.
It's
and
shockingly high.
I don't get that. It's fine. I better not ever run for office in Virginia again. That's fine. Northern Virginia is totally soulless and depressing. It dominates, of course, I can't help but view it through a political lens. It dominates the politics of the state. The mountains are lovely, but to be number 3, I don't really get that one. I'm fine with, I get Hawaii number, it's beautiful, beaches. I understand why people put Hawaii number 1. Don, it will not surprise you that the one I am most outraged about is Kentucky at 42. Kentucky is a fantastic state. It's beautiful. They've got the horses. They've got the bourbon. They've got the mountains. They've got farms. It's a lovely place. Louisville is a great city. For it to come in at number 42, although it is one higher than your home state of Missouri, so there is that. Go ahead, Don. Your thoughts. Defend your home state.
Yeah, I really can't. Fuck Missouri. Missouri is a terrible place. Missouri, you see voting rights bills just as bad as they are in Georgia. You've seen the criminalization of abortion over the last several years. And you see that, by the way, with a lot of these red states who are ranking at the bottom, who have trampled and diminished human rights in their state legislatures.
God. You had to take it there. Fun segment, we had to go.
Soccer, you didn't interrupt him. Interrupt me.
That's right.
I think you look at public policy, it's reflected in the bottom quartile of all of this. I don't know how to explain D.C. other than people just seem to hate the partisanship. But my 3 homes, Missouri, Alabama, and D.C., are 50, 51, and 43. Perhaps this poll reflects the curse of Don Calloway. I don't know.
That's pretty good. New Jersey is 48, to be clear.
And that's obviously something I think bipartisan sentiment around. I watched Kyle Kalinski's segment on this yesterday, and he made a very strong case that Delaware should be the worst state in the country, which I kind of agree with, Emily. It's just like a tax haven, and then the home of DuPont, which poisons people. So I kind of agree. It's basically there's what good is really going on in Delaware right now. I think it's a pretty strong contender for the bottom of the list. And I do also, even though you won't hear a lot of DC defense on this show, I think you are right about the sightseeing part of it. And people don't really, in terms of how they spend their vacation, they definitely don't act as if DC is at the very bottom of the list.
That's true.
Plenty of tourists, plenty of people coming from all over to see the sights here, and there are lots of beautiful attractions, so I wouldn't put it at the top of the list, but I think it's pretty harsh to put it all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, and maybe that does reflect some political sentiments that are probably well placed, but it is true that like we should be really proud of the District of Columbia. We should also, I was in New York the other day just looking around. I hadn't been there for a while because of the pandemic and thinking like there are a lot of people who do a lot of bad stuff in New York City, but we should be very proud of the city. It is it's beautiful, and it is a testament to this country, even though it's very poorly run and a lot of people struggle there. It's a testament to the country in a beautiful way. So maybe that explains why New York is so high. But it's funny that you talk about Delaware and New Jersey because they are terrible states from my experience, but they are also sort of like full states of Northern Virginia, right? Like it's like just an extension of Northern Virginia right up through Delaware into New Jersey because it's this soulless sort of rows and rows of suburbs.
Sagar, what do you think about Texas being 10?
I'm not shocked. Texas is a very polarizing state, but obviously a lot of people want to move there. That was actually my question to Don, which I'm curious about, which is that Emily did hit on something, which is that Arizona, Georgia, both there in the top 10 are some of the biggest millennial destinations, along with Texas, especially amongst like the burgeoning Democratic class. So there is something here to be said.
North Carolina at number 5.
You're right,
there's
exactly.
A lot of swing
North Carolina,
states in the top
a lot
10.
of swing states. Florida as well is right there, and so it's like places where people want to live outside of Hawaii. I think. I mean, it's not that people don't want to live there, but nobody's actually going to do it. It's when I'm looking at it, there is something to be said about, and we've talked about here on the show, which is that internal migration, particularly of younger people, could dramatically change our electoral college and our politics. And you can see that actually reflected here in terms of the U.S. states ranked according to all Americans.
Yeah, so the average age, the median age in this country is 38. That means that, 38-year-old understands that work from remote is real, particularly after the pandemic. I can be wherever I want to be, either working remotely or I've started my own business or I'm engaged in an enterprise that doesn't require me to be in some office in Schenectady. And if that's the case, if I can live and be wherever I want to be, I want to be at a place where I probably might not have a state income tax. That's why you see Texas and Florida way up there. I want to be at a place where it's sunny, where I can get outside, and frankly, where I can afford to live, where I'm not paying $4,000 or $5,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. I can have a house and a yard and so on and so forth, to the extent that that still represents some piece of the American dream. But I do want to point out here that Washington, D.C. is far more than just the National Mall. It is a vibrant city full of culture and life and museums and everything else. And there's a whole lot of beautiful Black people that live here that don't want to be priced out of the city, and we still claim the city as our own.
Yeah,
that is very true.
Well said. All right, really quick, who would you guys put first and who would you put last, Emily?
Oh, first and last. Last is definitely New Jersey. There's just no question about it. First, there's too many good options. I can't say Wisconsin.
Come on.
Okay, so California in terms of natural beauty.
That's a great state. All right, Don, what about you?
I'm a city guy, but I really love Montana. I've been all over Montana.
Me too. I love Montana.
I've never been to Montana. That's one of the few states. I've never been to Montana, Idaho, or Alaska. Those are the 3 that are left on my list. I think I would put, I have to say, I really love Kentucky. I think I would put Kentucky number 1.
Listen,
it's a fantastic.
This is not Fancy Farm. You're going to be ready.
Yeah, I know.
It's a fantastic, dramatically underrated state. So I guess I can still run for office in Kentucky. Virginia is apparently off the list. Yeah, last you got to go with Jersey. Yeah. I mean, it's like a no-brainer pick.
Jersey's last. I love California. I really do. Natural beauty, Lake Tahoe, San Francisco, San Diego, LA. I mean, it's a tragedy what's happening in a lot of places, but man, it is just so beautiful there.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you for joining us, indulging us on this one. We appreciate it.
Great to see you guys.
Next on Rising, the president of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. They tell us the Amazon fight in Alabama is not over yet. That's when Rising continues.